Welcome to another edition of Dogger Pass Podcast. This for UFC Vegas 73. I'm Paul Shaughnessy. Cody Saftic is on the line. Producer Megan is on the sticks. I got some payback to do. And, you know, the grass cutting shoe, I mean, there hasn't been any grass cutting. I got to cut my grass right now. But it hasn't actually been used this season, so... You know, by popular demand, the grass cutting shoe is back. Looks like there's a couple fragments from like last fall in there. I'm a trained professional again. So, you know, don't try this at home. This is not safe. I've been doing this for years. And yet you said, you know, you were like, I'll do 3 over the course of, you know, the first half of the episode.
The main card.
Of the main card?
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to do a double barrel here, Cody. Back to back.
Back to back. Okay. I like it. I like the enthusiasm.
The shoe can fit both of them at the same time, but I've got them both open. We're gonna fire this up. Oh yeah, I forgot to say this episode of the Dogger Pass Podcast and all episodes of the Dogger Pass Podcast are brought to you by Prize Picks. Use promo code DOP when making a new account to get a match up to $100 on your first deposit.
Yeah, well, last week was definitely a dust-up of a card, so I'm happy to squeak through it, got our top 2 lines going, but Paul's going to have to do 2 shoeys on this episode for the simple fact that he lost both of his shoey bets, but beyond that, man, it's just another case of bad bounces in MMA. Like, I could have ended up doing those 4 shoeys just as easy. He's got Gabe Green in the first fight over Brian Battle. I take the slight underdog here in Brian Battle, but in what world could you break down a fight and look at a guy's attributes and come to the conclusion that he did, that the guy could easily just probably out-wrestle Brian Battle if you want to, and then cage door closes, buzzer goes, and he just goes full YOLO mode and runs at him like an idiot and throws down. So why would somebody do that? I don't know, but Paul obviously has no control over it, so he loses the first one. And then 230-27s in that Chase Sherman fight, but like, oh man, I thought I was done. What a sloppy fight. Chase Sherman's since been released from the promotion, but just a dirty, sloppy heavyweight fight. I'm sitting there with a guy that's a minus 450 who should be walking right through Chase Sherman, who I thought in the first round, you know, fairly easily did his thing, and then just fell off a cliff completely. So that's MMA betting in a nutshell. Like, you do your research, you do the best you can to try to put yourself in a position to win, but they go out there and they're going to do whatever. So finally, for the first time in a long time, we got 2 tickets hit last week, 1 and 2, and squeaked out of it. And now we've got one more card before a break and then the pay-per-view. And it's just another whodunit dust up. So I'm looking forward to breaking this one down with you, Paul. And I'll give you another shoey bet on that Latifi fight if you want it.
I don't know if we can. We'll get there. We'll get there. I may need more seltzers to want to do more of that. I mean, those were pretty easy. Lemon probably wasn't the best choice, but not too shabby. I mean, here, yeah, we'll quickly wrap it up. Like, Gabe Green, part of my idea in that fight was that the guy has never been knocked out. He goes out there, just absolutely bum rushes the guy, probably believing in his chin, like, hey, I've never been knocked out, and then gets knocked out.
Like Drew Dober. Yeah, I got Dobered.
What are you going to do? That is what it is. And I didn't agree with the 30-27s in Sherman versus Williams, but I gave Williams the first round and the third round. I thought they were close. Like, rounds 2 and 3 were close. I saw some people saying that, like, oh, it was a robbery. Chase Sherman won. It's like, I had money on Chase Sherman. It's like, and I was really struggling to give him round 3. He got gassed. He was a little bit too tired. He wasn't really landing too many great shots. But, I mean, he outdid his price tag of, like, plus 330. I'll give him that. Like, it was a lot closer fight. It was probably like a minus 200 type of fight.
Middle and heavyweights.
Middle and heavyweights, buddy. Variance remains undefeated. Let's get into the action here, bud. We got Mackenzie Dern taking on Angela Hill in the main event. Minus 170 for Dern. Plus 150 for Hill. Take it away, Code.
Yeah, so I mean, like it's an underdog main event as far as I'm concerned. This is a dog or pass, and then you end up with Angela Hill. And do you feel good about it? Absolutely not. But I can't get behind the price tag Mackenzie Dern as the favorite. This is now the third time that we've seen Mackenzie Dern in a UFC main event going 5 rounds. The previous times against Marina Rodriguez, fails to get the takedowns, got a takedown in the second round, fails to consistently get her opponent down over the course of 5 rounds, and Marina Rodriguez almost triples her up on the significant strikes numbers, beats her over the course of 5 rounds. And then you've seen it in her subsequent fight against Yao Jianan or last time out. Sorry. Yeah, against Yao Jianan. Again, another fight, 5 rounds. She does get 2 takedowns in that fight. She is able to get a bit of control time. But for someone who's such an elite grappler, if you're only going to get 1 or 2 takedowns over the course of 25 minutes, you need to make them count. You can't just win the round. You can't just take the back and look flashy, look smooth, and then go out the very next round and drop it because you're unable to get it to the ground. So with Mackenzie Dern, I can't trust it. If you were to break her down from a fighter standpoint, she's not a good striker. She's not a good wrestler. She's got world-class Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. 11% takedown accuracy in the UFC, but she's got this vaunted Jiu-Jitsu. Well, I'm the idiot that just lost money 2 weeks ago on Kron Gracie for pretty much the same breakdown, right? He can't strike. He can't wrestle. But he's got this vaunted jiu-jitsu. But unfortunately, you need some substance, especially if you're 5-round main eventing a UFC card. There has to be something more than just, well, if the fight hits the ground, they're going to have some critical edge. How does the fight get to the ground? Now, in her fight with Tecia Torres, 0 takedowns scored in that fight, but she did get the fight to the ground. She's able to pull guard and be effective. But it's 2023, Paul. I just don't want to bet minus 170 on someone who's presumably going to pull guard, that being one of their best paths to getting the fight to the ground, which is their wheelhouse. Nobody wants to fight off their back. Nobody wants to get doubled up in the significant strikes numbers. I just can't really get behind her. Now, what does Angela Hill bring to the table? Angela Hill is just very serviceable. I mean, she's gone out there. She's fought an absolute who's of fighters. She's fought some elite grapplers. And for the most part, her submission defense checks out. This girl's fought some of the best grapplers in the game. And again, can most of the time live to tell the tale. 3 fights back against Verna Jandiroba. She gives up 5 takedowns to Verna. But Verna's actually a good wrestler, right? With those 5 takedowns, again, she gets neutralized for the most part, but she's able to survive. Goes out in her last 2, Loopy de Godinez, Emily Ducote. Neither girl really decided to wrestle her all that much. As a result, you see Angela Hill do what Angela Hill does, and that's squeak out these close, tight decisions where generally she's got a lot more volume. Again, when you look at her best, she lands 182 her last fight against Emily Ducote. That's just sickening number for any division. But again, it's hard to look away from that because Mackenzie Dern's never landed more than like 70 significant strikes in a fight. She's also got 85 put up against Lupita Godinez. She had 77 against Yoder, 131 against Watterson, 90 against Claudia Gadella. So again, she's a volume striker. Is Angela Hill knocking out anybody out in the first round? No, not likely. Not unless it's a complete mismatch. For the most part, it's just that ability to work over the course of 3 rounds. 182 landed over 3 rounds, right? Imagine her at 5 rounds. She's got the pace. She's got the cardio. It all comes down to the takedown defense. Now, for Angela Hill, 77% takedown defense, but it's who is taking her down. Lupita Godinez with the 1 takedown, but she's actually a decent wrestler. Verna, sorry, I said 5 earlier, it was 3, but Verna's actually a very legit wrestler. Tecia Torres, Ashley Yoder, known for her grappling. Michelle Watterson won. Claudia Gadelia won. It's not as if anybody's going out there and dominating her specifically in that realm. So could I see her getting tripped up and getting subbed? Maybe. Although submission defense, again, very good. But could I also see her getting tripped up, losing a round or 2, but over the course of 5 rounds, just landing a lot more shots? Absolutely. That's kind of how I see it going. Because again, with Mackenzie Dern, she got outstruck by Yao Jianan her last time at 113-61, doubled up. Tecia Torres, she got a split decision win over Tecia Torres, but she had been outstruck 76-50 in that fight. She got outstruck against Marina Rodriguez 144-49. She's getting outstruck. Even you go back to like her fight with Amanda Hebus. Hannah Cipher was even outstriking her fairly soundly. Striking just never got there. And you see her take a year off and come back, but still not change anything, right? So just like Chase Hooper, who we'll talk about later, if you're not getting any better, right, after a full year, then at some point we're just going to have to abandon ship. And I think I'm abandoning ship. So it's not going to be on the top ticket, even in a hedge out situation. It's not even going to be on the second ticket, but like I'm going to pick Angela Hill and fit it in on the parlay at some point.
I can't disagree. I mean, I run it through the CF dot model here, Code. And here's the interesting things. It's like Prize Picks, they usually have pretty like tight numbers on some of this stuff. Dern has a line of like 1 takedown. I'm not saying to play this. I'm just saying that like if it's a 5-round fight and Dern's only securing 1 takedown, or if that's the line, and she's not clearing that, I mean, then the total of 24.75, or in terms of like the actual numbers, over 4.5 rounds is at minus 145. It's just like, so what we're kind of being told, at least by the numbers, that this is like a 5-round striking affair. And I know that, Mackenzie Dern has made some significant improvements on the feet, but not nearly enough to actually win at that range. She's going to have to force it up against the cage. She's going to have to make it ugly. She just doesn't have the wrestling to consistently get the fight to the mat. If she gets it to the mat, it's going to be a big-time danger zone for Angela Hill, like it is for everybody down there. But I think we saw enough in like the Marina Rodriguez fight where her defense was at least adequate to keep herself out of significant trouble in a lot of those fights. And then we kind of saw, Rodriguez struggle against a much better wrestler in Verna. It all kind of points towards plus 150 here. Angela Hill. It seems like a very, very reasonable dog shot. A dog shot that I haven't taken yet, but with very limited options on this card from top to bottom, I'll probably end up with a ticket by Saturday. Not gonna lie. Plus 150, man. Dern's gonna win a 5-round striking affair here. If she does, gladly take my money, but doesn't make sense to me. So we have some agreement there. Maybe me a little bit more confident in Hill than you. But we move on down. We've got Anthony Hernandez taking on Edmen Shahbazyan. Anthony Hernandez is a minus 220 favorite. Shahbazyan could be half plus 185. It's kind of crazy seeing Anthony Fluffy Hernandez be a minus 220 favorite. This is a guy that has been very, very underrated in all of his fights right up into the last couple, And it seems like his game has really came along. He was a guy that we kind of poked fun at, and then the Rodolfo Vieira fight kind of put him on a new radar altogether. But his grappling is super, super solid. But Shahbazyan has that pedigree, that finish ability that we've always expected him to turn the corner. Is this the fight, Cody, where Shahbazyan turns the corner? That's, I guess, the real question here.
Yeah, that's the $1 million question, and there's no doubt about it that he's going to continually be getting better fight to fight because he's still only 25 years old. He's finally getting a little bit of confidence going, considering that he won his last fight, kind of turned the ship around. And here was a guy that was fighting at a Glendale Fight Club, right? The same gym as Ronda Rousey, under the famed Edmen Taverdian, and you could see that his career, similar to hers, is starting to get rocky. He's not learning new skills. He's not improving fight to fight, and this once super promising prospect was falling off the cliff. But he has since moved to Las Vegas. His last camp, he was in Las Vegas. He got the win. Those are all great indicators that he is in the right direction. It's still 25 to a better gym with better training partners and better coaches and more consistency and getting more confidence because he gets the win. All good stuff, all good stuff. But we got to break down what he is, right? And so look at his early career. Everything's a first round finish. Every fight that he had ever had is done in less than 3 minutes. A lot of these fights that are less than 1 minute, fights on the Contender Series, it's another first round knockout. UFC debut against Darren Stewart, that fight goes 3 rounds. That fight, he looks terrible. He wins a split decision, but he's like a big favorite over Darren Stewart. And again, the first round knockout doesn't materialize. That's when I think that you see his game starts to slowly fall apart. Now, we can blame Edmen Taverdian, we can blame his gym situation for all these different things. But again, wins his next fight over Charles Byrd, first round knockout, wins a nice fight over Brad Tavares by first round knockout. That kind of puts him into top 15 competition, which he's not ready for. And it's just been disastrous since then. Derek Brunson exposes him in 2 elements, right? One, take him out of that first round. You saw glimpses of it in the Darren Stewart fight, but someone who's good, Derek Brunson's fringe good, but someone like Derek Brunson, take him out of that first round. Even Brunson had a cardio advantage over him. But the second thing that he exposes is the wrestling. Like, the kid does have jiu-jitsu. He's been competing in tournaments since he was like 6 years old, 8 years old. But at the end of the day, not a wrestler, not all that comfortable off his back. And again, mentioned it earlier, it's 2023. You don't want to be playing off your back for the most part. You want to be getting into these advantageous top positions. But as a result, Brunson just smokes him there, right? Jack Hermanson, much of the same. 3 takedowns, uses those takedowns extremely effectively. In the first round against Hermanson, Shahbazyan looks good. The second and the third round, he's gassed out. He's off his back. His game completely falls apart. Happens for the third time. Not necessarily him getting out grappled, but the Nasruddin Imavov fight. He starts off quite good in that first round against Imavov and then completely gasses. Imavov takes him beyond the first 5 minutes. Same blueprint minus the wrestling. And he completely gasses out. So, yeah, in his last fight, it's a win over Dolce Lungimbula, and it's a second round finish. And you watch that fight, Paul. The kid looks awesome in the first round. He looks like $1 million. The second round, even though he ends up with the flying knee knockout, the second round, he's tired and he's getting hit. And he does not look nearly as good. And I know he's 25, and I know it's his first fight in Vegas, and I fully expect improvements out of him. Maybe enough to get this win. But I think at his core, he still is the same guy. He struggles with the takedowns. He struggles with pace. And Anthony Hernandez, if he's shown us anything over this last number of fights, they're calling him a poor man's Cain Velasquez for a very specific reason. He scored 16 takedowns in his last 2 fights, averaged 8 apiece in both of them. The guy is just relentless. He seems to have awesome cardio. The Rodolfo Vieira fight, he got taken down 4 times in that fight and did nothing but survive and still tire his man out and catch one of the greatest, a man known as the Black Belt Hunter, with the guillotine choke submission, right? Again, since then, you've seen his cardio is pretty good, his wrestling's pretty good, and he's chain wrestling. If he doesn't get the initial takedown, he's just going to keep going. So that kind of work rate, that kind of ability to chain wrestle one takedown to the next, which is going to cause Edmen Shahbazyan to consistently have to work, that's going to tire him out. Him ending up on his back is not going to be good for business, and this is a good stylistical matchup for Fluffy Hernandez, I think. Minus 220, like you're saying, he's normally underrated, and you can get a better price tag on him. He's definitely giving up the striking advantage to Edmen Shahbazyan, but only for the first 5-7 minutes, right? Once he tires him out, then I don't think Shahbazyan's going to be throwing a ton. He's mostly going to be on his back getting mauled. So this card is greasy from a matchmaking standpoint, but also just straight up from a betting standpoint. Last week's card could be argued as greasy, but I hit 3 big favorites in Alex Morono. It made the tickets worthwhile, but we had our 3 big guys, and Morono was a 220. Hernandez is a minus 240 on this card, minus 220 to minus 240 range currently in the betting market. He's the second biggest favorite on the card. It's all these close, tight, 50-50, greasy spots where one guy wins, one guy could lose. So it's hard to feel good about anybody. But at least he's got a definitive style clash here with the wrestling, the grappling, the cardio. He's still only 29, so we're talking about Shahbazyan making improvements. Fluffy Hernandez has made a lot more improvements from his run on the Contender Series to where he is now to what Shahbazyan's been able to do. So, yeah, I have to go with the favorite here with Hernandez. And I'm going to have to trust him a little bit this week as well, which could be a shady proposition because Shahbazyan could kick him in the head. Sure, it happens. It's MMA, but I got to go with the wrestling and the cardio.
Yeah, it could be dangerous for him early, but then, see, this is like one of those spots where it's like you can't really even say that this is like, oh, it's a great live betting opportunity. It's just like, well, no, not really, because like if Fluffy takes him down immediately, like from like the opening bell, it's like, well, then, you know, this minus 220 is just turned into minus 400, and it's going to continuously grow after that because, yeah, the first 7.5 minutes are going to be probably pretty dangerous for Fluffy when he's hanging out at range. But I've seen enough improvements in his pace, cardio. Obviously, his submission grappling is super, super solid. Is this the fight where he comes back down to earth? I mean, the Rodolfo Vieira win is one thing, and it was obviously more had to do with the fact that Vieira had a really bad cut and absolutely just fell off of a cliff. I mean, wins over Josh Fremd by decision and Marc-Andre Barrio in the third round aren't exactly like awe-inspiring, but the style is right there. The path is right there for Fluffy to just take him down, tire this kid out early, and he should absolutely dominate in the later rounds. Unless Shahbazyan's put up some or improved his cardio to a significant degree, but you're not going to know that before these two guys step in the cage. So, yeah, it's Hernandez for me as well. We got Loopy Godinez taking on Emily Ducote. Godinez is a minus 150 favorite. Ducote can be had for plus 130. Who you got, Code?
So I think I could be conned into Pat Mann's line of thinking here, which is to take the random underdog because this fight's going to be close. It's going to be close. It's going to be competitive. The numbers will probably be somewhat similar. Both girls can wrestle enough that I don't see either of them taking each other down. So you're going to have a 15-minute striking match. Emily Ducote, at her best, she can put up over 100 over 100 significant strikes. In her debut against Jessica Penne, lands 116. Her last little run with Invicta after she had left Bellator, you see massive striking improvements out of her. She's got that dirty, filthy head kick KO over Tanisha Tennant. So she can strike. She can throw up some volume. She's got some decent power. And I think her takedown defense, again, a girl that wrestled in college, I think it's going to be good enough to keep this thing standing. Godinez has been relying on her wrestling to get the job done more times than not. When she doesn't rely on her wrestling, that's usually when she loses the fight. They're usually close. They're usually competitive. You look at her last fight against Cynthia Calvillo, which is like 6 weeks ago, another bad sign for me. And she gets outstruck by Calvillo 104 to 87, but she beats Calvillo, who's on a terrible run, I believe retired after the fight, and squeaks that one out, and then has a 6-week turnaround. And this is what she's been doing. She takes as many fights as she can. Does she have a full camp? Probably not. Does she have a couple lingering injuries here and there? Probably. But she's the go-to person to call up. It's good for business. It's good for the bank account. But she's in a lot of these really close fights that could be sided either way. And I think she's not putting her best foot forward necessarily. Her, again, prior to that, she fights Angela Hill. When she decided not to take down Angela Hill, showed the easiest path to victory, shows off extremely limited ring IQ here by not even really pursuing it, and gets boxed up standing. So she's not above that happening here. She's the minus 150 favorite. I don't think I could trust her. Emily Ducote has the wrestling, has decent enough striking. I can see Loopy edging it out over a decision. I can see Ducote edging it out over a decision. If I want to play one of those exotic type tickets, first of all, either girl you end up with, you take by decision to try to get a better price tag. But if you like playing these exotic tickets, I would strongly suggest a split decision, because it's going to come down to what the judges favor. Slightly more work rate and activity, or a little more clinch game and some heavier shots. Like, it'd be subjective. So I see it going 15, which if you look at the over, I think people are pretty much agreeing with that one. I think whoever wins this fight probably wins a decision. I think they edge out a close decision. But it's a dog or pass show, man. And this is a dog or pass fight to me. So I am going to take Emily Ducote ever so slightly. But again, there's no priority really in putting her high up on the lineup this weekend. It's just kind of a throwaway pick. But I did go with the underdog, Emily Ducote.
I kind of almost like half expect Loopy Godinez to have like 37 takedowns in this fight, because in the previous, against Angela Hill, where that was your path to victory, she decided to hang out at range and not throw strikes. And threw strikes, but it's like did not really attempt until the third round, did not attempt a takedown, which was just mind-bogglingly like, what are we doing here? You can't really trust her to go in there and implement a solid game plan. Yeah, so if the wrestling ends up actually being a wash, I'm going to side with you. I'm going to be on the dog side with Emily Ducote as well. I think that people are moving in on Godinez. I mean, I suppose in theory, going toe-to-toe with your hands, strike for strike with Angela Hill is a nice little feather in your cap, but she ended up losing that fight. And then, frankly, I thought Calvillo beat her last time out as well. I mean, the stats lie, of course, but stats would tell you that. I was holding a Calvillo at like plus 250 ticket. That fight was close enough that it could have gone either way. So I feel like she got a little bit lucky to pull that one out against Cynthia Calvillo last time out. Both kind of, I suppose, similar type of stylistic matchup to Emily Ducote, but Ducote's a little bit more dynamic with her striking. So, yeah, I think at plus 130, not the worst look at all. Don't know if I'm going to get there from a betting perspective, but I will pick her. We got Joaquin Buckley taking on Andre Fialho. This is at 170 pounds. Buckley moving down to welterweight, which I think is a good move. He's always kind of seems significantly undersized at middleweight, taking on Fialho. Both of these guys in big-time need of a W in this spot. Could be a pink slips fight of sorts, even though both of them are like super, super exciting. And the age that we're living in of MMA fights, it's like these are the kind of guys that you want to like stack prelims with, because they end up having like viral moments, whether it's them getting knocked out or their opponents getting knocked out. It's usually a good time. But yeah, Buckley minus 235, Fialho plus 200. Your thoughts here, Code?
Yeah, for Buckley, I totally agree, man. 170 seems like the spot for him. It's not as if he's never fought at 170. He fought Logan Storley. What was the year on that one? Bellator 197, 2018. So 5 years ago was the last time he made 170, but he actually came into that fight at 168 and a half. So it wasn't even the biggest welterweight going. And then takes a couple fights at 185. UFC calls with an offer to fight Kevin Holland at 185. And just the rest of it has been competing at 185. Similar to Chris Curtis, the action man, he did the same thing. He's a welterweight. Opportunity knocks at 185. You take it. And if you're winning, might as well just stay at 185 for a while. If he goes on a long losing streak, which is possible, I would expect him to maybe go back down to 170 at some point. And in Buckley's case, like you said, maybe a pink slip fight, he needs to put his best foot forward, and that's probably at 170 pounds. So with Joaquin Buckley, he's got massive power. I mean, I don't even know that he can make 170 pounds now. It's been 5 years. He's obviously a lot older and a lot more mature, but he's got a massive barrel chest on him. Like, the guy is pretty big now and would be considered a hell of a big welterweight. So keep your eye on how he manages his weight, I guess, coming up to fight week. During fight week, and then what he actually ends up weighing in at. But I think that he's got a tremendous amount of power. It translated well at 185, but at 170 pounds, should still have it. He's very explosive. I think him using that explosive kinetic energy is what allows him to get tired in these later rounds and kind of get sloppy. But if he just fights a tight technical game plan, doesn't throw combinations, just really waits for that one big shot, yeah, he'll follow a little bit behind on the volume, but he can definitely pace himself over 15 if need be. Wrestling's definitely getting better. His scrambles, all this stuff is getting better, but the UFC's not really done him any huge favors. His last two losses are Nasruddin Imavov and Chris Curtis. So two guys that are ranked in the top 15, two guys that are fairly legit. And certainly in the case of Chris Curtis, his last time out, he was looking really good, man. Like, Curtis has a way of lulling people to sleep and then knocking them out, but he was looking really good against Chris Curtis until his lights got shut out. So unfortunately, that is the game we play. It's MMA. You could get caught at any point, and he did get caught. But you can't take away from the fact that he's got some solid striking, some good speed. Again, very athletic fighter. At 170 pounds, he should be better. His opponent should not be hitting as hard. And he's probably just better suited all around for there. Andre Fialho, meanwhile, very familiar with him. Never been trustworthy of this guy's durability. I just don't think he's really the most durable guy going. And he comes from this kickboxing background. He is a striker. He wants to strike. That's him at his best. He lost to Chidi and Joaquin as his first pro loss in Bellator, but 21-second knockout loss. Those are not the kind of guys you want to bet for the most part, because at any point, they're going to maybe get toppled over. But regardless, his next pro loss is against Chris Curtis. The first two rounds, he just gets worn down. The third round, he's completely tired, and Chris Curtis puts a mauling on him, knocks him out. The third pro loss is Antonio Dos Santos Jr. So a couple red flags here. One, Fialho was a minus 250 favorite over him. Two, Antonio Carlos hadn't fought in 3 years and actually never fought again after that fight. But he completely gasses out and he gives up the takedowns. Michel Ferreira didn't get knocked out in that fight, did get outstruck 104-48, was getting zinged left, right, and center, which made it a very entertaining fight, very entertaining UFC debut. Like, he got mauled up in that one. Jake Matthews knocks him out, which is very uncommon for Jake Matthews, and then Muslim Salikov doesn't knock him out per se, like your traditional shot to the head, spinning back kick, and then the follow-up ground and pound, and he's just done at that point. So, like, him at his best is an all-action pressure striker. Trains under Henry Hoof, trains with the Black Zillions, wants to stay in your face, wants to put on a striking clinic. Just doesn't necessarily have the durability to do that against some of the better guys. Even in his wins, he beat Cameron Van Camp. Van Camp zings him with one single shot before eventually toppling over himself, but the striking defense is not quite there. So with Joaquin Buckley, like, I think he's got enough firepower that if this thing does end up being a brawl, he's going to put hands on him. Chris Curtis took a beating and then eventually prevailed. Andre Fialho does not take those same shots, will not take those same shots, probably crumples over. So I would think Buckley by knockout. But again, there's certain guys that, I don't know. That's how I see it going down on a personal level. Buckley just knocks him out. If Buckley doesn't knock him out, is Fialho going to pressure forward and get in his face and grind him and tire him out? Maybe, but he doesn't have the cardio for that, nor does he have the durability to fight a Mexican style, which is come forward with your, chin down and look to slug it out with him. Like, he's not going to work for him. It worked for Chris Curtis, sure. He's got that kind of style. Not going to work for Andre Fialho. So Buckley, and then if I was getting greedy, I would chase the Buckley by knockout.
Yeah. On Prize Picks, 41.5 significant strikes for Buckley, like the under there. Like, even if you go through, he had a really boring, like, maybe both of these guys come out here. Like, I was thinking about the total, the under 1.5. That's pretty much close to it's basically a pick 'em, depending on where you bet it right now. Ranges between plus 105 and minus 105, essentially, across the market. but this could be one of those fights where it's like both of the guys, 2 straight losses, worried about their job. They kind of take it a little bit more slowly in round 1. So it's like you could be kind of really pissed off at the end of 5 minutes being like, why aren't these guys coming out and trying to kill each other early? Because they're both trying not to make mistakes. But we saw Buckley kind of do that when he took on Abdul Razak Al Hassan. That fight was, it was really weird. There was takedowns coming from left, right, and center. We didn't even really factor that in between Fialho versus Buckley. Maybe one of these guys has a significant grappling advantage. That not a thing that you would like forecast in advance that's going to happen within the fight, but sometimes these things kind of play out that way, particularly if guys are trying to play it a little bit safe. But yeah, that fight, it's like he got to 51 and a 51 significant strikes in a 3-round split decision win. Otherwise, he's gotten slightly over in a lot of these fights. Like second round TKO loss, he got to 50 against Chris Curtis.
He was fighting like a maniac, and he would have learned from
fighting
that.
Like exactly. That's my thought. Is that the numbers? If you actually go through, but it's like if you think about how this fight plays out, it could be more like the Impa Kasaganay fight where you got to 29 in a second round spinning back kick finish, which that's kind of what made him and like what everyone knows him for is that finish of Impa Kasaganay.
He is the best. The greatest finish I've ever seen in my life. I'll just add one on to what you're saying, though. The biggest example to me was his fight with Albert Duraev, because they actually trained together. And Duraev, before the fight, was like, I take this guy down all the time. So in that fight, he's super tentative because he's like, I don't want to get taken down. And he picks all of his shots. Yep. And he picks all of his shots. And he just bossed Duraev out. Only landed 27 significant strikes through 2 full rounds. And Duraev's eye is just a mess. They end up calling it because he couldn't see out of his eye, right? So I thought that was like, oh, dude, Buckley can fight super precise. Decent. But then he gets Imavov, who fights a hell of a pace. And then he gets Chris Curtis, and he got too cocky, man. Like he went. He was feeling good. He was feeling good. He was looking good. He was hurting him. He was definitely hurting him. Some of those shots were big, but he got caught with his hand in the cookie jar, right? It happens, but I think now he'll go back to more methodical, especially like you said, job on the line. So make weight first and foremost, but after that, yeah, Buckley.
Yeah, less significant strikes. That covers all finishing possibilities early in the fight. And it covers like maybe even like a 3rd round finish where it's just kind of really, really slow paced. Wouldn't be too shocked by either one of those results. So I'll be adding that to my prize picks card this week. All right, moving on down, we've got Diego Ferreira taking on Michael Johnson. Diego Ferreira minus 150 favorite. Michael Johnson can be had for plus 130. Your thoughts?
Yeah, like again, if Carlos Diego Ferreira, you're getting a good version of him, it'd be like, buddy, all day. I just don't know what version of him you're getting, because at 38 years old, coming off over a year-long layoff, he's not the same guy he used to be. Again, him at his best, 3rd-degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, is very solid, very crafty with his all of his submissions, and is able to chain submission attempts together. Can use them to sweep, can use them to submit. If he gets on your back, you've got a world of problems. His wrestling, big time developed, man. He can go out there, he can score takedowns, generally likes to back his opponents up to the base of the cage, and then just pull them off that cage. You saw in his fight with Anthony Pettis, someone that can definitely expose you if you're not a tight wrestler. And then in terms of his striking, at one point in his career, it wasn't great. You go way back when to his fight with Dustin Poirier, he gets cold cocked. After that, he spent a lot of time, moved down to Texas, spent some time in Fortis MMA, boxing ever improved, tight combinations, likes to throw, has some decent power, decent volume. I think he can knock out Michael Johnson. I think he can take down Michael Johnson. I think he could submit Michael Johnson. I think he could do a number of things to Michael Johnson, him at his best. But just like you saw in last week's card, certain guys like Tim Means. Like Tim Means was looking good until he wasn't, simply because you're broken down. Matt Brown, he had a throwback performance, but he's taking on a guy in a similar position in Court McGee. Like, you start to lose it as time goes by, and they've not done him any favors. So it's hard to gauge if his losing streak is simply because he's fighting elite grapplers and he's not quite there anymore, or if it's more so his body shutting down. But him against Beneil Dariush, very competitive fight, but he gave up the 5 takedowns. He got out grappled. He spent a lot of time off his back. He loses. His fight with Gregor Gillespie mauls him. Was not afraid to take him down, despite his vaunted grappling. Took him down, beat him up standing, wore on him, and physically just broke him. Something you haven't really seen in a long time from Carlos Diego Ferreira. Breaks him, TKOs him in the 2nd round. It's like a a pretty solid performance from Gillespie, but I think you also saw writing on the wall for Carlos Diego Ferreira. And then that last loss on it, Mateusz Gamrot. Again, he's competitive early, but Gamrot takes him down 4 times, same as Gillespie. They don't care if you're a great grappler. You know, it's hard to fight off your back and win fights. So he takes him down, he puts a mauling on him, but it's in that second round. He's got him up against the cage. Carlos Diego Ferreira just calls it off. They claim it was a rib injury. They, TKO due to injury, but you haven't seen him fight since then. And that was December 2021. So now all of a sudden he's coming back a year and a half later. He's 38 years old. His last fight, 3 fights, it's a 3-fight losing streak. He's not looked himself, and his body's probably breaking down. All that being said, yeah, Beneil Dariush is a world-class grappler who took him down 5 times. Gregor Gillespie may be the best grappler currently in the division. Why does he never fight? I don't know. But 4 takedowns there. Okay, fine. Mateusz Gamrot. Mateusz Gamrot's a total G. Total G. He gave up 4 takedowns to him as well. No world exists where Michael Johnson is taking him down. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. So it's a totally different fight. And who was the last guy to try to just strike with him? Well, that allows Carlos Diego Ferreira to probably get his own offensive wrestling going. So part of me just wants to take the grappling advantage. He's got a massive grappling advantage. The guy has fought at a world-class level. He's lost 3 losses. Yeah, I understand you've lost your last 3, but losing to those guys, to me, is a lot bigger than Michael Johnson beating Alan Patrick and Mark Diakese. I guess the win over Diakese was actually pretty nice. And his wrestling defense looked way better. So if that version of Michael Johnson shows up, stuffs some takedowns, keeps this thing standing, he's got hand speed. He's got some decent volume. When he starts to feel himself and get his confidence going, the guy's able to strike with anybody, put pressure on them, back them up. If that version of Michael Johnson shows up, yeah, good times, right? If he gets taken down, he's in a world of shit. And again, if Carlos Diego Ferreira, the guy that beat the crap out of Merbak Tesumov, shows up, like, he's capable of just pressuring Johnson backwards and cold cocking him as well. So Johnson gets a lot of 50-50 fights. He looks good when he's not supposed to. He looks awful when he's supposed to look good. Yeah, I don't know. Carlos Diego Ferreira, more consistent, but the last 3, you can see he's not the same guy he used to be. Year and a half long layoff, 38 years old. This is a total stay away. You wouldn't like whoever the favorite is, even if they flipped it. You wouldn't feel good with the favorite, no matter who it be. In this case, it's Carlos Diego Ferreira, and I do not feel good about it. But I got like a Michael Johnson effect. Like, if I start getting behind him, he's going to lose. And if I go against him, then he wins. So I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't. I might as well be don't. I'm just going to take Carlos Diego Ferreira. But again, how could you feel good about this considering all the things we just broke down?
Yeah, I feel like his last 2, like Michael Johnson's last 2 opponents, have kind of let him off the hook. Like, the grappling can be exploited. I don't really buy into. I mean, I remember back in the day when he was taking on Khabib, people were like, "Well, he was like
junior college,
a junior college wrestling standout." It's just like, okay, yeah, anybody with a beard with OV at the end of their name, it's just like, I don't care what community college you went to, pal, it's not gonna hold up in there. Diakese has, on the record, like, I watched that fight and being like, I was like, what happened? Like, it was D1 Diakese. That was kind of the joke that we had coming into it. I know he has 6, like, by the stats, he had 6 attempts, but it's like, I would be hard pressed to find those attempts. Like, they were really like half-ass attempts. He wasn't really going after it like he did in some of his previous fights where he had some serious success. Jamie Malarkey only tried 2 takedown attempts against Michael Johnson. Like, I don't know why.
Jamie Malarkey almost knocked him out as well, for the record.
Exactly.
And he almost knocked out Jamie Malarkey. It was a crazy fight, but
the biggest question with Carlos Diego Ferreira is, yeah, it's a year and a half layoff. You're 38 years old. I'm 38 years old. I know I'm washed. I'm not a professional athlete by any stretch of the imagination, but it doesn't get easier. I'll tell you that much. So, for the purposes of this show, I will pick Carlos Diego Ferreira. Hopefully he sticks to the wrestling. Hopefully he shows he brings the game plan that he did against Anthony Pettis. But now I know Michael Johnson's wrestling is probably better than Anthony Pettis's. But hopefully he brings that game to the drawing board here. He brings it to his game, tries to get this fight to the mat, striking with Michael Johnson at range all that time that he spent in Florida with that team. Like, he's very, very solid, and he can hang with anybody at the best of times. It's not necessarily the best of times for Michael Johnson, but he's still, that guy can hang with with some of the top 20, top 25 kind of guys in the world. No questions asked. But year and a half layoff, all of that time. I wouldn't be shocked by like a weight cut miss here. So it's like, I don't think I'm going to beat the market at this point. I don't feel the need to force any action on this fight. Carlos Diego Ferreira at this point in the week will be my pick, but we'll see what he's looking like on Friday morning. Viacheslav Borschev takes on the legend of Maheshate, the legend who lost me a shoey bet last time. He was out there. Borschev, a minus 155 favorite. Maheshate can be had for plus 135. I mean, I wonder if this guy's name was like Carl Wilson or like what's a really boring name like Ned Armitage.
Kevin Smith.
Like if his name was that, it's like, would I bet this guy every single week? Probably not. But like Maheshate, like it just sounds like a gangster, like ninja warrior. So yeah, I bet him at plus 138. I know Borschev is like the striking coach at Team Alpha Male. I have no idea what the easiest way to beat Borschev is the wrestling. I don't really think Maheshate's got any wrestling. So it probably ends up being like a 15-minute striking affair. But it's like, here's the question, Cody. Team Alpha, who's Borschev sparring with? Like a midget over there? Like their biggest fighter over there is like 135 pounds. Give me a break. Maheshate for me.
I got to go Borschev, and I like the price too. But no, you're not wrong. He's a welterweight, so I mean, even if he fights now at 155. Yeah, who are the guys in the gym that he's working with? I get it. All jokes aside, he's probably working with badasses like Josh Emmett and Andre Fili. Andre Fili not so much a badass, but guys like Josh Emmett and Borschev is in a good spot at Team Alpha Male because the word is that nobody wants to stand with him. Okay, they take him down. Everybody takes him down. So at Team Alpha Male, like that's what he needs to work on is your opponents are going to take you down, which they still manage to do anyways. What are you going to do about it? But you have not really seen him be able to like throw his weapons freely, and I think he will be able to in that fight, and this should make a killer difference. You look at his record, every single guy has attempted for the most part to take him down. And he's got nice wins here too. That Kenley St. Louis, it'll tell you that he was 3-3 at the time. Kenley St. Louis went on to win his next 6 fights in a row and fights for PFL now. He's actually legit, okay? Knocked down the second round. Borschev can bang. His fight on the Contender Series against Chris Duncan. Duncan takes him down twice, right? Borschev gets back up. He knocks him out cold. His fight with Dakota Bush in the UFC. Dakota Bush, this is his debut in the UFC. Takes him down twice. Uses a leg kick game plan from the outside to try to rack up leg kicks and then scores the 2 takedowns, right? Borschev powers his way back up and then cold cocks him clean. Mark Diakese takes him down 11 times. That's where he gets D1 Diakese from. Like he put on an absolute clinic there. So this is now Borschev has given up takedowns in all of his fights. He got up against Duncan and knocked him out. He was able to get up against Dakota Bush and knock him out. Against Diakese, he was not able to do that. And in his next fight, which is his last fight against Mike Davis, the exact same thing. He gave up 9 takedowns. But those guys are good. Like Diakese's not great, but he's still a fringe 25 guy. Mike Davis, when he's healthy, which is a rarity, but the guy is a complete badass. Fringe top 15 guy, those guys are taking him down multiple times. Those guys are durable enough that when he does get up standing, he can't do anything about it, and they can go back to that wrestling. Maheshate has never even attempted a takedown in the UFC. He has a UFC takedown accuracy of 0%. Borschev has never fought a guy that did not attempt to go out there and take him down. So I think vaunted striking badass from Team Alpha Male, I think you're probably going to see him a lot closer to his best than what you normally see him as, which is him trying to avoid takedowns and try to get back up. Like he got up 10 times against Diakese. He got up 8 times against Mike Davis. He's got a decent get-up game. He's just got shitty takedown defense. If you're not going to exploit that, you're playing right into his wheelhouse. Maheshate, to my knowledge, is not going to attempt that. Now, the 3 fights that we've really been able to analyze from him, let's say go back to his Contender Series fight against Achilles Astrumadura from Canada, he looked awful. Like he got beat up by Achilles fairly handedly until Achilles gassed out. Then he worked his way back into
like a 5-1
his fight with Steve Garcia.
And you had him on your PRP.
I lost a ton of money for sure. Maheshate, and that's why you like him, because he had a crazy name. He was overvalued in a Contender Series spot. The guy he beat, Achilles, was undefeated and never fought again after that. So fraud is what it turned out to be. And Achilles in the first round is styling on him. Second and the third round, he gasses out because it's unknown territory for him in a pressure situation. Maheshate comes back. And then you bet him again. I take Steve Garcia. You just randomly take him because Steve Garcia is an idiot who likes to charge headfirst into shots. And this kid Maheshate can crack. And he cracked him. He knocked him out again. The third time was the charm for me. I rolled the dice on Rafa Garcia. And Rafa just mauled him with the 6 takedowns, which Borshev's not going to do. No. So, we got 2 guys striking. Durability, I think Maheshate's actually more durable than Borschev. I think Borshev's all around got more volume, more power, better striker, 15 minutes, probably going to be a largely striking affair. And if he doesn't got to worry about getting taken down, you should see a better version of him. So I'll take Borschev. Maheshate, he's got the durability. He can crack. He's just got to stay in the pocket long enough to land one. Possible, absolutely possible, but I got to go with Borschev. So I know you don't want to shoey bet on it, and I wouldn't fault you for that either. But it's not like I feel great about it. But at minus 155, it's not like he's some big favorite that's getting put in a bad spot to lose. Okay, I can't sniff out the apple pie as much on that one. Cody Stamen last week, man, I was all over that one. But I still did it. Stupid. This one, I'm not getting those same vibes.
No, it was Ilir Latifi that you offered me a shoey bet pre-flop with before.
Do you want a 1-1 on this?
I think it was before the show started.
Yeah,
let me just.
I'll take one on each.
Let me just keep looking through here. I mean, what happened in his fights against William Starks? That doesn't look like that looks like a pretty bad loss. Takedowns,
taken down. And William Starks, it won't look pretty because it's like, you click on his record now and he was 9-3, and at the time he was 3-1. But William Starks, if you look at his amateur record, he was 15-1 as an amateur, and he was the IMAF champion. So he actually was a badass. And I remember the moment I seen him, this Michael Koretz, his third pro fight for Titan FC, got knocked out. You could see the moment where it was like, he's not actually like a rugged fighter. He's a guy with just a ton of talent, capable of beating guys. But when the going gets tough, he was probably going to falter. And his pro career hasn't matched his amateur career, but it doesn't look good. William Starks is actually good. He's got a legitimate skill set. It's just fighting's probably not how he's going to, make his long-term money.
I'm looking at the Legend of Maheshate's his Instagram. I'm creeping on his Instagram right now. You know what his most recent photo is, Cody? It's with Shavkat. At the UFC PI. He's been training there for a decent amount of time. It seems like, let's shoey bet this one. I'm in.
Okay.
Maheshate versus Borschev. Hopefully I get one back on you. I will never, and hold me to, I will never shoey bet another Maheshate fight if he shots in this apple pie. We got Karolina Kowalkiewicz taking on Vanessa Demopoulos. Kowalkiewicz, a minus 130 favorite. Demopoulos can be had for plus 110. Vanessa's made a lot of significant improvements. I think it was someone that we used to kind of like poke fun at and make fun of a little bit. Her previous job and so on and so forth. But it's like the girl's certified tough. Comes there to fight. I think her striking is 100% a work in progress, but she's been making it work for herself. Credit where credit's due, and she showed some decent power, decent pop in her hands, which is not very common, obviously, in women's strawweight division. But yeah, I mean. Yeah, knockdown against Maria Oliveira. That was a super close, greasy fight, but she was giving up a lot of reach against Oliveira. Jinyu Frey fight, she won by split decision, but I thought that one was like super clear that she should have won. And then our armbar, obviously, against Silvana Gomez Juarez. But this line, Cody, seems very, very jarring. And it feels like people are moving in on Demopoulos. And I know Demopoulos is at Fight Ready, I believe, in Arizona. A lot of good things obviously happening out of that gym right now. But I don't know. It seems pretty disrespectful, this line all the way around. I'm struggling not to lay money on Karolina in this spot, to be perfectly honest. Like, this girl has fought the who's who in MMA. She's on a 2. Maybe if it was like a couple years ago, she's on the 4-fight losing streak, and everyone was kind of questioning where her head's at, whether she's committed to this. But it's like, She's came in. There hasn't been great competition, but she's won, second round finish against Felice Herrig and pulled off a pretty clear unanimous decision victory against the most vaunted power puncher in Silvana Gomez Juarez. Yeah, I struggle to understand why this is like a pick 'em. I would have lined it closer, maybe like minus 170, plus 150. So Karolina is the pick for me. What about you?
Yeah, listen, I'm gonna have to agree. Like, as much as I would like to just maybe take some type of dog shot here for no other reason than there's no real clear-cut favorite. Yeah, the line's basically suggesting it's the same thing. With Vanessa Demopoulos, like you're saying, she's definitely made improvements. She's in a very similar predicament to Mackenzie Dern, right? She cannot strike, she cannot wrestle. But her jiu-jitsu is legit. I mean, she's not on Mackenzie Dern's level by any means, but she's very opportunistic with her submissions. She's very flexible, stripper guard, she'll call it, because of her time in past employment. But again, very strong, very crafty. She can use the sweep on top. You don't want her pulling guard, but if the fight hits the ground, she's more oftentimes than not in a good spot. The difference between her and Dern is the willingness. This girl is willing to go face first and clunk it out with you to try to get the takedown. She will take a punch, and she can take one hell of a punch in order to make something happen. So she's hyper aggressive. She just doesn't necessarily have the skill to get there, but she's still young enough that I think that she's making improvements. She's getting better. Her wrestling's getting better. Her striking's getting better. Her cardio's already legit, and her grappling's legit. It's how do we get those other things to catch up? But I don't feel comfortable ever getting behind her when she's a sizable favorite. Her fight with Jinyu Frey, they'll tell you it was a win, but like it was a robbery decision, in my opinion. Greasy split decision. Hard to call those robberies, so probably not a robbery. But yeah, out of like the 9 media outlets that submitted scores for it, 8 of them had scored the fight for Jinyu Frey, and yet she jumps over into Michael Bisping's arm and has this big celebration. Like, I'm not saying she's full of herself. I'm saying, yeah, it's like a false sense of confidence almost. You didn't really. It's hard to say didn't deserve this win when you fight for absolutely as hard as you can. She did deserve the win. She did everything she could. But it's not like you knocked her out. It's not like you submitted her. It wasn't like you put an exclamation point on some great performance and you're celebrating it. It's like you barely squeaked one out. The fight with Maria Oliveira, yeah, a lot better on paper, right? But she loses the third round on 2 of the 3 judges' scorecards. It ends up being a close fight, and she got outstruck 83-56 in that fight, right? So, yeah, she scored the knockdown. Yeah, she scored 2 takedowns, but the volume wasn't quite there either. The striking defense, it has not improved either. So against a good striker, someone who's got, say, good accuracy and decent volume, they're going to rack up numbers on him. And Karolina Kowalkiewicz has exactly that. Versus somebody that can stuff her mediocre takedown attempts and keep the fight standing, it's going to be a problem. Karolina Kowalkiewicz, wrestling, yeah, exactly. Good enough to keep it standing against that lower echelon of grapplers. So, like you were saying, 2-fight winning streak, that's all good for business, because even though she's 37, she looked washed, uninterested, washed. Now she's looking like, hey, I can still do this. I still got good striking. I still got rock solid cardio. My takedown defense is fairly good, and I'm coming off 2 decent wins. Why not keep this thing going? So I agree with you. I think she just sprawls and brawls her way to victory. I think she just stuffs the takedowns more often than not and wins the striking exchanges, racks up the volume, wins the fight. That being said, 2 things could go wrong. Thing number 1, they're just going to give a split decision to Vanessa Demopoulos because she was coming forward and she was trying to do stuff and whatever, and you get screwed on a decision. Thing number 2 is, if you remember Jessica Panay versus Karolina Kowalkiewicz, she just takes Jessica Panay down, and Jessica Panay just throws her up in an armbar and submits her with an armbar from guard. In play. Which is 100% in play in this fight. So this is probably a better live betting opportunity. If Vanessa Demopoulos wins, you should know right off the hop, first round or 2, she can break through. If not, maybe Karolina just sprawl and brawls her, and over the course of 3 lands those better shots. But I think you can get screwed on a scorecard. I think it could be a split. I think it mirrors, in many ways, this fight mirrors the main event, right? Because Vanessa Demopoulos, former training partner of Mackenzie Dern for the record, has a very similar style. And Karolina needs to fight the same game plan as Angela Hill, which is sprawl and brawl. Move your feet, rack up the volume. This is only 3 rounds, so you need to get going. You can't rely on the extra 2 to save you. And I think Karolina should be able to do that. So last thing I'll say is, you hear a lot of times people break down and be like, oh, well, she's never faced grappling like this. She's never faced this. Karolina trains at American Top Team. She's seen it all. And she sees it all on a day-to-day basis. So there's nothing that she sees or that she's not seen before. And I think that's a huge advantage in putting together a proper game plan and executing it. So I, too, will take Karolina Kowalkiewicz. But there's 4 women's MMA fights on this card, like, and they're all tight and they're all could go
Well,
the
not
other
all
way.
of
And
them.
no, oh, that's a lie. Yeah, the biggest fight. But should she be an 8-1 favorite? No. Should she be a 7-1 favorite? All day. All jokes aside, she'd be a big favorite. But like, do you still feel good? Like, are we gonna get Agapova? I don't know, man. We'll talk about it when we get there.
We'll talk about it. That's what they call a tease in the biz. We got Orion Cosce taking on Gilbert Urbina. Straight pick 'em, homie. Who you got?
Straight pick them because both guys are massively untrustworthy, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the bookie knows what they're doing. And I think at some point, some bookmaker, somebody with some power would have sat down with the UFC's, matchmaking team and been like, yeah, let's start making a lot of greasy fights between the low level guys. Cut those guys making 50, 60,000 that actually have some decent experience. Let them go to Bellator and PFL and live out the rest of their days there. Fans know what to expect from them. We don't want that in the UFC. We want guys from Contender Series. We want guys from LFA. We want guys from the regional scene that have less than 10 fights and have finished all of them in the first round. Expect the unexpected. This is just another greasy fight where you get exactly that. Orion Cosce, similar to his brother Lewis, they come from wrestling bases. Both guys are physically strong, have some decent wrestling, but not high level wrestling. The technique's not quite there as much as they're muscling a lot of the moves. And the cardio is not quite there. Like, they both generally get a lot of these really quick finishes, first round finishes. So if the fight is need to go a couple of rounds, how are you going to do? When his fight against Philip Rowe, it's his UFC debut coming off the Contender Series, he looked good in the first round. He took Philip Rowe down, who was putting some ground and pound on him. The thing is that he's got terrible cardio, just like his brother. Philip Rowe did nothing more than just survive the first round. Boy, oh boy, that second round, he put an absolute beating on Cosce. The UFC does their best job to help this kid out. They book him against Blood Diamond. Yes, Blood Diamond. Cosce got hurt. They sat on the matchup for 4 months and booked it against Blood Diamond again. The fight fell through. They sat on it again another month and rebooked that. Cosce missed weight, came in at 172.5. He misses weight. He's got the worst grappler on the roster, and it's finally a fight he can win. And like, he did win, Paul, but that was the best that Blood Diamonds looked in a UFC fight. And like, he damn near dropped the bag a few times, man. He's getting beat up standing. He completely gassed out, but he was able to initiate the clinch. He was able to slow down the pace. He was able to get a few takedowns. That's what won him the fight. But greasy. So again, you look at it, it's been a year. Okay, probably made some improvements. He's still only 28 years old. Trains at a decent level. He split some time between Team Alpha Male. He spent some time in Las Vegas. I would expect him to get a little bit better. But one, he's coming into this fight with Gilbert Urbina, having missed weight in his last fight. So I got to wait to see the weigh-ins. Second of all, his cardio is no good. So he needs to get this first round finish, or he's going to be in a lot of trouble. Just gas out and put up a bad spot for me. I can't trust it. There's nothing trustworthy with him in the slightest bit. And then Gilbert Urbina, meanwhile, is like, his brothers have tried this before, man, and they've all faltered before him. Like, the Urbina family has had bad results in the Contender Series, bad results in the UFC. This kid jumps into the Contender Series. He beat Michael Gilmore. I guess that's the free win of the season. His fight with Therese Gore, backed up, knocked out. His fight with Brian Battle, much of the same. He was in there because of an injury replacement. Jumps in basically last minute. He's longer. He's rangier. I think if the fight was to stay standing, that he would probably put hands on Cosce. Cosce's got the power advantage, but Cosce pushes everything. So if he doesn't get that quick first round knockout, I would expect that length, speed, and just overall volume to probably come from Gilbert Urbina. Thing is, both of them like to fight in the clinch. Urbina likes to initiate the clinch. He likes to fight inside the clinch. Cosce also would prefer to fight in the clinch. The difference between Blood Diamond and this fight, Blood Diamond's actively running away, trying to avoid the clinch. And I think that's what caused Cosce to have to chase him around, tired him out, ate some bad shots. In this fight, Urbina's probably not going to be moving. He's probably not going to be trying to get out of there laterally. I think he will engage him. They're both going to lean on each other. They're both going to gas out. And then it's going to see who's got slightly better grappling. And if that's the case, I think Cosce. So, like, I would pick him, but straight up, this line
is accurate.
Yeah, it's minus 110. So there's nothing to be had here. It's like it's all just an assumption. I'm assuming he's gonna miss weight or make weight, even though he had 3 scheduled rematches with Blood Diamond and still blew it in that fight. I'm expecting him to be better. I'm expecting at 28 he'll make improvements, even though he's not shown it over the last number of years. I'm expecting his cardio to be better, even though him and his brother have not shown any improvements over the last couple of years. It's just a lot of expectations. On Urbina's side, I can't do it. You could go back to like 2015, 2015. Was it 2015? Maybe against Edgar Garcia. And Paul had proclaimed his brother the worst fighter on the roster. He proceeded to go out and lose. Always would go out and lose. And when I seen his brother on the on the Ultimate Fighter, it was just like, oh man, is he any better? Nope, he's not any better. Injury substitution, they throw him there against Brian Battle. Is he any better? Nope, not any better. And then again, it's been like a year and a half. Brian Battle's had 4 fights in the UFC in the same time frame. He's gotten better. He's made improvements, but you don't know that about Urbina. You can only go with what you remember in the past. So again, if what we remember in the past, I think he's got better volume, better range, probably better striking, but this fight's just going to play out in the clinch. And Cosce wins the clinch battle, so I will take him, but so greasy. And yeah, again, not anywhere high up on the priorities list for me.
I'll take Urbina just to be different. I have no idea, Cody. I have no idea what's going to happen when this This is the bottom of the barrel in the division. Loser probably leaves town. But yeah, I'll just side with the fact of a potential edge in cardio, because if you're dragging Blood Diamond, if you're a wrestler, you're supposed to have a wrestling advantage, and you're dragging Blood Diamond the full 15 minutes, I can't trust you with my money. So, but then on the other side, we have the brother of the guy I called the worst fighter in UFC history. Man, what a spot we're in. What a sport. What a promotion we talk about every single week that they have us pressed to make decisions on this one. I'll pick Urbina, but won't be touching that one with a 10-foot pole. We got Rodrigo Nascimento taking on Ilir Latifi. Nascimento is a -200 favorite. Latifi can be had for +170. You know me, I love Latifi. Here's the problem. And why I can't back him. I've backed him a bunch of times. It hasn't been that successful from a betting
He's won his last 2 fights, dog. He's on a roll. The worst fights you've ever seen in your life, like as a fan of the sport, oh my god. But as a Latifi supporter, the Swedish tree stump is making a comeback.
Is he making a comeback though, Cody? Is he?
He's 40 and a heavyweight, so no, but
that was a pretty obvious matchup. We all kind of saw that one coming against Alexei Oleinik. It's just like, how are you going to choke somebody who doesn't have a neck? And sure enough, that's kind of how the fight plays out. Tanner Boser, that one was super, super greasy all the way around. And, Boser struggles at 205. That win doesn't look nearly as impressive as it did in the moment. I struggle with them in general, and you always, you're the heightest guy. You're the guy who always makes fun of guys for being way too small. But eventually it's like 5'10", 73-inch reach at heavyweight, taking on a guy who also wants to grapple, probably just negates the grappling all the way around in this fight. And in his illustrious career, there was a lot of fights here. I'm not counting them because there's so many fights on this page right now, Cody, in his UFC career. It was last time out against Alexei Oleinik. Oh, I'm wrong. Sorry. Tyson Pedro. He landed 44 significant strikes. It's hard to win fights. And somehow he's managed to do it in a bunch of fights. But 44 significant strikes when you're giving up 7 inches of reach. You're going to be 3 to 4 inches. That 5'10" on his record, it's like, I'm not buying that. Like, he's 5'8". Let's call a spade a spade. He's taking on a guy who's legitimately 6'2", 246 pounds, and an 80-inch reach. I think he's going to get picked apart at range. Is he going to take Rodrigo Nascimento down and just hang out in his guard? Potentially. But then he puts himself into a danger zone. Like, I love backing Latifi. I've backed him in a ton of spots. But that's where it's always spots where I think, well, he can secure takedowns. He can hang out in their guard, do next to absolutely nothing. I'm not convinced that if he takes him down, he's a little bit longer in the tooth now. He's a little bit older, a little bit slower. The volume's always been low. If he takes Nascimento down, is he going to put himself into a situation where he gets subbed? I mean, he doesn't have a neck. His arms are really, really short. The more I kind of talk about him, maybe he does just take him down and hang out in his guard for 15 minutes. But
for sure,
I think it's probably more likely this fight just hangs out at range and Nascimento picks him apart. Nothing too spectacular. It's going to get greasy in round 3 because Nascimento's cardio hasn't been anything too impressive. But I think it would be kind of like a 60-30 significant strikes, really, really boring heavyweight affair is kind of what I see coming in. So Nascimento is going to be the pick, but I can't fade my boy Latifi. It won't be getting my money this week. What's your take?
Okay, so I'll give you a proposition. I too am picking Rodrigo Nascimento, but I would take Latifi in a shoey bet if you gave me a 2-1 shoey bet. Like I would take Latifi if I thought you because we just talked about it at the beginning of the show with what nearly went wrong with Williams versus Chase Sherman is they're middling heavyweights. That's the bottom line. The middling heavyweights, they're not that good. It's gonna get sloppy, not gonna be a good time. That's what this fight is. Latifi fights exactly like that. And you know what? It's extremely boring. He's getting booed the whole way, but nobody cares because he's a tiny little man who's as tall as he is thick, fighting monster heavyweights. What are you going to do? That's his path to victory. It's not just his last 2 wins. It's the fight before that against Derek Lewis in Houston, where some people thought he won for the record, but he got outstruck 20-5. Derek Lewis landed 20 because Derek Lewis was on his back the entire time. Latifi landed 5 significant strikes despite scoring 3 takedowns and being on top the entire time. No ground and pound. He literally just takes you down and holds you down. The fight with Tanner Boser, he landed 10 significant strikes over the 15 minutes. The 2 takedowns, that's what won him. The fight with Alexei Olenek his last time, volume was a little bit better there, but it was the 3 takedowns. Now, I remember all fight week, it was like every time you saw Khamzat Chimaev getting it into it somebody, it was like Latifi was there. He's like his bodyguard. It's like, oh, dude, he's inner circle Khamzat Chimaev. Like, watch how good he comes out for this fight with Alexei Olenek. And he looked awful. He looked awful, Paul. So I'm not expecting a reinvented version of Ilir Latifi. I'm expecting the same version you see every single time out. I even try to give him the credit of, remember back in the day when he would just flatline guys with that big hook? Like, he has meaty power. This guy is a strong power puncher. Those days are long gone. He doesn't throw power standing. He's not looking to gas himself out. He's looking to touch, back you up against the cage, take your ass down. If this was a large cage, yeah, not going to be good against a guy with an 80-inch reach. But in the small little apex cage, doesn't got to travel a long distance to get a hold of him. Once he takes him down, yeah, Nascimento's 265 pounds. So that's great, but he's not great off his back in terms of like getting back up. And in terms of people are now all of a sudden talking about Nascimento like he's a badass, he barely squeaked by Tanner Boser. In a fight, he got doubled up in the striking numbers, which he's not going to get doubled up against Latifi, but didn't look good. He relied on those greasy takedowns and some top control to win him that fight with Boser. Those probably won't be available with Latifi because you're not going to take him down. His fight prior with Alan Baudot, 2nd round knockout, but like, he's losing to Alan Baudot. He lost the 1st round to Alan Baudot and then pins him up against the cage, tires him out, takes him out. I can see that happening here. And the reason why I end up taking Nascimento still is like he is the natural heavyweight. Like the guy is 265 pounds. He is a grappler. He is all those things. Where Latifi's walking around at 253 these days because he's basically semi-retired and they can match him up against some smaller guys, which they have. If you look at Alexei Olenek is not a big man. He used to fight at 185 pounds back in the day. He spent the best days of his career at 205 before joining the UFC at heavyweight and having like a late career resurgence that started off with that scarf hold with Pro Cop, but like not a massive guy. Tanner Boser not a massive guy either. He's a 205 pounder. Derek Lewis, a massive guy, but Latifi still took him down. But it's like they've for the most part matched him up against some of these smaller guys. Like Nascimento's a big boy, big boy. So if he's going to win the striking exchanges, if he's going to win the volume game, then all you have is sit in his guard. Then like I got to know how bad his takedown defense is. And that's the issue with breaking Rodrigo Nascimento down is he's only fought any grapplers. His fight with Chris Daukaus can grapple, but Daukaus just knocked him out in 45 seconds, didn't need to. His other fights are Dante Mays, Michael Martiniak, Alan Baudot, and Tanner Boser. Neither of which can grapple. So like, there's a good possibility that Latifi is the best wrestler he's ever fought, and he just takes him down and sets up shop in his guard for 2 of the 3 rounds. They're both gassed in the third. It's sloppy. Nobody lands, and Latifi squeaks out a decision. Sure. It's also possible, dude got knocked out in 40 seconds by Ducote. It's also possible that Latifi, as much as you haven't seen that power in a long time, could cold cock him. It's a greasy heavyweight fight. It's a greasy heavyweight fight, so much so that like minus 200 is the issue. I don't mind picking Nascimento. It's the minus 200 price tag. Should win and will win, 2 way different things, right? So yeah, again, I will take Nascimento, but if someone was to offer me a 2-1 shoey bet, not some random guy on Twitter, because they'll take anything to see. Who cares? They got nothing to lose. It's a good time. Me and you, there's something to lose here, right? Nobody wants to do the shoey on the show versus the opposite guy. If you were to give me a 2-1 shoey bet, I think there's enough reasoning for this being a greasy, middling heavyweight fight to suggest the underdog has a chance. I would take a 2-1 shoey bet. But for this minus the straight up price tag, I don't know, dude. It's greasy is the bottom line.
I couldn't live with myself. I couldn't live with myself for losing a shoey bet on Ilir Latifi, my guy.
Your guy.
There's certain guys that's just like I would never. I couldn't go on the opposite side in a shoey bet. Khabib, obviously, he's probably never going to fight again. Francis Ngannou. Ilir Latifi is in the mix. Gregor Gillespie. Justin Scoggins, who won at XMMA a couple weeks ago. Congratulations to him. Good to see him back on the winning up curve there. It's a very, very short list. That's probably, Hamzat, I guess.
That's fair.
But, it's a pretty short list. And Ilir Latifi, he's made me a bunch of money over the years. I won't be backing him. Shirt? No, I had an Olynyk shirt.
I didn't.
I had an Olynyk shirt. I don't know if there are Latifi shirts out there. There should be. I'd buy one.
I would get one with just him on the horse. Doesn't have to be some stupid affliction logo with a bunch of tribal signs and a hammer and some other. I don't like fancy designs. Just give me him sitting on that horse. That's all I need for Latifi.
Make that for yourself pretty easily.
Get copyrighted right away. But yeah, no, 100%.
Is someone going to stop you in the street code? Be like, take off that shirt. It's copyrighted. I don't even know whose picture is that anyway. Nobody knows. It's the internet. Everything's free.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
All right, Chase Hooper making his lightweight debut.
Yeah.
Taking on Nick Fiore. Yes. Minus 120 for Fiore. Plus 100 for Chase. I think Water Show was like posting like a video of, or no, it was Pepe. I don't know if you know Pepe. Pepe
Silva?
Was Pepe Silva, yeah.
Yeah.
He was posting a video of like Chase. Chase been putting in some time at the gym. Obviously he looks like a 13-year-old boy. He's very, very gangly, skinny. He's moving up to 155. I always kind of hesitate in these spots, though, where it's like you're moving up to a new weight class for the first time. Because it wasn't too long ago. When was his last fight? It's October 29th. So,
yeah,
looking about like 6 months. It's like those weight class moves, really, you see the biggest improvements, maybe a year and a half later. Like, it takes time to actually completely fill into that frame, put on 10 pounds of muscle, and do it. Like, it's going to be a lot easier on the weight cut. I'm sure the weight cut was very, very tough for him. He's young. It's easier when you're young to make that weight cut. So maybe that's what happened with the Steve Garcia fight. But we've seen it time and time again with Chase Hooper. It's just like, and I've said it on Twitter, like back in the day. I said it multiple times. It's like, this guy should be developing down in like LFA or on the regional scene where he's not like going out there and getting absolutely killed. Like, he's just taking so much damage every single fight, and he was able to fight through it. His chin was holding up in so many of these spots. And then Steve absolutely cold cocks him. So knocks him down 3 times, gets him out of there early. In theory, I suppose this isn't a terrible matchup for Chase Hooper. Fiore is a guy who likes to grapple in his own right. But I really struggle to, like, I don't know. I haven't really seen much of a stand-up game that I think is sustainable in the UFC from Chase Hooper. I do think that, like, you know, his brand kind of grew up before he could, and I worry about him fighting at this level against grown men. So I'll be picking Fiore. I think the steam that's coming in on Fiore is the right side. Just on the pretense of he's probably a better striker than Chase Hooper. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's another hard fight to get a read on because you've got Fiore, who you haven't really seen anything from him. When he was on the regional scene, it was low-level competition. You and I, prior to his UFC debut against Rebecca, had broken down the fact that he fought Jay Ellis twice. Like, well, what are you doing? But he'd fought a very low level, and he smokes them, and he smokes them all in the first round. So how good is this kid? I don't know. Then he takes a short-notice fight against Matus Rebecca, on a week's notice, not even, like 4 days notice, replacing Omar Morales. And like Matus Rebecca's 16-1. And he's fought in a lot of really good guys, and he smashed them all. And I think if Matus Rebecca was to fight Chase Hooper, he would smoke him. Mm-hmm. And yes, this kid took the fight with him on like 4 days notice and scrapped it out, lost, got taken down, but he's definitely a good grappler. He's defensively sound. He's got some offense. I think if you gave him a full camp, which he does have now, you'll see a much better version of him. Everyone's talking about Chase Hooper still only 23. This kid's only 25. So, yeah, it's when you're smoking low-level competition, how good are you? How high is the ceiling? And, yeah, he lost his debut, but look good. And your sophomore outing, you're generally a little more comfortable, a little more well-equipped. And, yeah, I don't know. I guess full camp is definitely going to help him out. So, all of that makes me very interested in the prospect of taking a Nick Fiore. But with Chase Hooper, I wouldn't completely write him out as well. Like, he's been spending a lot of this camp with Michael Chiesa. And, like, there's one thing to say that Chase Hooper's putting on muscle. He's big, man. Like, he's taller than Michael Chiesa. And though he's not as thick, like, he's filling out. This kid don't look like a lightweight. And this is his lightweight debut. So I could see down the road, you know, if he makes it to 30, if he makes it to 32, maybe he ends up as a welterweight. But it's like you're saying, he's never going to get there unless he shores up his defensive skills right now. He's taking a tremendous beating in there. And I don't think it was his chin's gone. That's why Steve Garcia dropped him 3 times. Steve Garcia low-key has like very underrated power. This dude just wallops most human beings that stand in front of him. So I'm not going to hold anything against him. He took a grappling match with Clay Guida like 60 days later, 2 months later. You know, he subs Clay Guida in that UFC Invitational. So I don't think he was like knocked out so bad that he's got brain damage. I don't think he's got early onset CTE. He's 23 years old. He should not be taking these beatings right now, but he's young enough that he can take these beatings right now. He just needs to improve, make adjustments, and get better. The one thing I will admit, though, is that if this thing is just being grappler versus grappler, and it very likely will be, then Chase Hooper is a pretty solid grappler. He can grapple with decent guys. He is black belt quality. Is he high-level competition black belt quality? Absolutely not. But he's a guy that's going to give guys in MMA a run for their money. So if Fiore is some great black belt and Chase Hooper's black belt quality, if it's largely grappling exchanges the entire way through, that's not where Chase Hooper struggles. Chase Hooper struggles with these guys that beat the crap out of him standing, right? That's where he struggles. Grappler versus grappler should be a little more equipped for Chase Hooper. Second of all, the UFC is trying to help him out. They're trying to give him a fellow young kid who fights his exact same style to give him a chance. And third of all is that Fiore mostly first round finishes. He did show against Rebecca that he can go 15. He did show against Rebecca that, well, he got tired against Rebecca, but again, 4 days notice, you give him a pass. Like Chase Hooper, he's got really good cardio, dude. If you do not beat him up and beat him up early, like the kid goes for 15 minutes all day long. His fight with the late Felipe Claras, sad story there, man. You know, again, third round, he's just like, he's still going. He's still going hard. The guy can grapple for a hard 15 minutes. And if this is just grappler versus grappler, I almost want to take the underdog shot on Chase Hooper, knowing that he can grapple and he can grapple hard for 15 minutes. He's got way more experience in the UFC than Fiore. He's training with a solid guy, Michael Chiesa, who should be able to add some definite tricks to his game. And yeah, he's put on 15 pounds of muscle, but you know, Michael Cera looks like a little bitch. But if you gave him 15 pounds of muscle and yoked him up a little bit, would you want to kick sand in that guy's face? No. Maybe still. Depends what he looks like with the 15 pounds of muscle. But in Hooper's case, I want to write him off. I should write him off. Most people have written him off, but the UFC's actually given him a decent fight here. So I think I'm going to take Hooper. I want to take Fiore, and this is going to sound like a cop-out, don't have enough underdogs on this card, and someone's gonna shit in the apple pie. And when I write off Chase Hooper, he'll come through with a classic save your job performance, which he's actually done a few times. So I'm gonna take Chase Hooper plus money.
All right, we got Natalia Silva taking on Victoria Leonardo, minus 1,000 for Natalia Silva, plus 700 can be had out on the markets right now for Vicky Leons, as I have called her before. I mean, this is wild, Code. This is wild. Natalia Silva has looked fantastic in her 2 UFC, well, not even completely fantastic. First fight against Jasmine Jasudavicius, she looked great. Like that was, I think a lot of people were very, very surprised, myself included. It was very hard to get a read on what Natalia Silva was up to. She hadn't fought in a long period of time. Her record was like 9-5 or what, 12-5 entering the promotion. She's 14-5-1 right now. And yeah, that performance against Jasmine was just like, okay, this girl's really, really good. Round 1 against Teresa Bleda got held up against the cage a little bit. There was a lot of standing cage control, made it ugly, a little bit slow. And then round 2, obviously, she turns it on up. She's got tons of skill, tons of talent, but minus 1,000 on the money line is saying, wrap it up. This one's already finished before it started, which it actually kind of may be. I don't, you know me, I don't touch these lines with a 10-foot pole. Particularly, the Pat Mayo golden rule hangs out here. The CF dot model is just pinging off of the charts for me right now. It's probably going to be a pass from a betting perspective, but Cody, I have a deal for you. It's 7-1 on the board there. 6-1. We'll call you 6-pack Saftic. 6-1 shoey bet. I'll do that. I'll take Vicky Leon because I know you're going to pick Natalia Silva. I'm going to pick Natalia Silva to win for whatever a pick means. But 6-pack Saftic versus 1 for Vicky Leon's. What do you think?
As you were talking there, I was like, I am not giving them any more than a 5-pack deal. But then the 6-pack Saftic, it sold me. It sold me.
Well. 6-pack Saftic?
I'll take it.
Love it. Can't let the
I'll take it in that. Listen. So we talk about these CLV guys, and it's like, man, they just wait it out and they wait for the line to drop and they beat the market and then they save all this value and they know it's a marginal gain. That value adds up over the course of a season. All true. This fight got announced. I was like, I'm gonna beat the line. Line opens up 6-1. Like it was just bad matchmaking from the get-go. But yeah, Victoria Leonardo could 100% win, not only because Pat Mayo's correct in his assessment that these are the spots, but she's got the skills. Like she is rugged. She likes to not the finest from the outside, but she'll definitely bulldoze through the pocket, land a couple hooks, clubbing shots, press you up against the cage, fights decent from the inside the clinch. What she lacks up in technique, she makes up in pure physical strength. Similar to an Andrea Lee, who she's been a training partner to in the past, where like wrestling and grappling isn't necessarily her forte, but physically very strong, generally comes in good shape. She was on a terrible run in the UFC, wins in the Contender Series in a fight that she lost the first round against Chelsea Hackett, TKO'd in her in the second. Her fight with Manon Fiorot, head kicked. She got head kicked by Chelsea Hackett. She got head kicked by Erin Blanchfield. So it was like a repetitive thing that she's clearly just not understanding how to defend a head kick. Happened again, although you give her a pass because it's Fiore. Melissa Grotto, body kick, breaks her arm. She blocks it, breaks her arm. Another bad result. And then that fight with Mandy Baum. So Mandy Baum will forever, you'll never be able to take this away from her. She'll forever have an official win in the UFC. And that was like the bummest win of all time. Mandy Baum is El Terrible. So Victoria Leonardo coming off a win over her just does absolutely nothing for me. Sure, you backed her up. Everybody has. Sure, you outstruck her. Everybody has. Sure, you outmuscled her. Everybody has. The difference is she didn't lose 2 points for herself for no apparent reason. And I don't even know how they gave the first round to. I don't want to talk about it ever again. The main thing is Victoria Leonardo is just not really at that level. She can beat girls that are absolute fraudulent, which she did one time anyways. But beyond that, it's like, the way to beat her here is like, I need to come forward. I need to make this ugly. I need to not necessarily use my wrestling as much as I need to use some strong physical clinch work and then land some big shots. But all of those things are things that Jasmine Jasudavicius just does a lot better than Victoria Leonardo, and she wasn't able to catch up with her. I think you saw that Natalia Silva, very physically strong, good striking, heavy numbers. She hadn't fought in 2.5 years before Jasmine Jasudavicius. So I remember, because Jasmine's got an excellent Camp Niagara top team and they do a lot of tape research. Part of the reason they took the fight, just they didn't know. You didn't know. What had she been up to for 2.5 years? But the Natalia Silva that I saw looked good. She had fought Marina Rodriguez back in the regional scene, so like had competed at a decent level prior. It's just, you give a young girl that much time off, they're going to get better. Another lesson learned from this past weekend was that Lisboa versus Jess Clark. Yeah, Lisboa hasn't fought in a while. She's got a handful of fights. She's Brazilian. How many Brazilians have you ever seen tape study on, and then you watch their UFC debut and they're not twice as good as they looked on the regional scene? Pretty much every single one of them. Much of the same with Natalia Silva. She looked really good in her debut against with Jasmine. You mentioned against Teresa Blada, held up against the cage. Teresa Blada, young, immature, very green, 21 years old, I believe, but like very physically strong, like very, very physically strong. So the first round, she got held up against the cage. Doesn't matter. Second round, third round, comes through, outlands her, wins the fight. What could Victoria Leonardo possibly do to her? Press her up against the cage for a bit. She'll eventually break away. She'll eventually land the strikes. She's better all around. If I had to personally cap this fight, I'd cap it at 5-1. It opened at 6-1, soft opener, immediately ran up to 8-1. That 8-1 is now boogied to 10-1. Don't be surprised if it goes off at 11-12, but where's the value at this point? I think you would have to take the inside the distance and just hope that she goes out there and puts away Victoria Leonardo. But like, do you really want to lose your money on that instead? So like, I'm definitely picking her. I will take your 6-pack Saftic bet because you entice me, good sir. But I'm gonna be so sad, so sad if I normally I'm happy pounding 6 beers. No, so sad if I gotta sit here on not next week's show, would be in 2 weeks, right? Mm-hmm. If I gotta sit here the next time I see you guys drinking 6 beers, I will be sad and salty.
Yeah, 6-packs. That's what you call marketing right there, buddy. That's how I got you to sign the deal, sign the dotted line with a little bit of sharp wordage. And I mean, I don't think that Victoria Leonardo, but it's like, it's women's MMA, crazy, like not even low level. Like from what we've seen from Natalia Silva since she came back from whatever long break, like obviously earlier in her career, she was losing fights left, right, and center. So there was obviously some problems there. But it's like she looks like a very, very, very talented prospect. There is no disrespect whatsoever. But maybe this just ends up being, Victoria Leonardo's night. She ends up holding her up against the cage a little bit. It would be funny from a content standpoint, and for 6-pack Saftic to try to struggle through. I don't even know what the card is in 2 weeks, but I'd be looking forward. I would be looking forward to that episode, Cody, if you had to do 6 shoeys over the course of it. Not gonna lie.
Well, yeah, and this is why we declared a banana peel pricing, is because at that price you could slip on a banana peel. And that's why I say, if I told you straight up, what are the chances that Natalia Silva, was to roll her ankle or break her leg checking a kick, or dislocate her shoulder on a slam, or to shred her knee apart in some bad situation, or break her hand, or get poked in the eye and it get ruled a punch, or lose 2 points for some stupid reason. My God, 2 points, Paul? She still should have won, for the record. My God. Anyways, we're not talking about it ever again. What are the chances that happens in a fight? Low, not high. I mean, 5% chance that happens. But what if they fought 10 times? Well, then exponentially higher, right? This is a 10-1, right? So could that stuff happen? Yeah. Is this the one time it draws you? Yeah. But beyond that, all that, she's the biggest favorite on the card. So you put her on your top ticket, but she adds nothing. So you put her on the second ticket, but she also has nothing. So you put her on the third ticket. At that point, she'll start to add something, I suppose. But like, what's the risk factor in proportion? So you it's small time for you. You do 1 shoey, no problem. If you win, you get to watch someone do 6 shoeys.
It's gonna be a lot more
presumably fun over the course of the main card. That's 1 shoey per fight. Oh. I might have to space it out to a few prelims for that. But we'll see if we have to cross that bridge. I'm hoping we never have to cross that bridge, but we'll see if we have to.
Yeah, I mean, that's why it's a risk I'm willing to take.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from.
It's do I think it's gonna happen? No, but it's 6-1. I mean, I feel very, very similar to like people taking just like the absolute, people who are like sprinkling the dog in this spot. It's just like, it's 6-1. You don't have to lose. You're not going to lose too much by chasing that type of dog. Does it hit? Is there value on the line? It's really, really hard to say because I still feel that there's like big question marks around Natalia Silva until further notice. Like that Jasmine fight was amazing, but at the end of the day, we're still betting on humans, right? And humans have bad days. Humans have bad weeks. People have bad 2-month training camps. So it's like you never really quite know. And the way that that this is priced is that we do know, and it's just going to be like a walkover. It's over. Bye-bye. You're done type of situation. So we'll find out. But obviously, both of us think Natalia Silva is going to win. But, I mean, most people watching are probably hoping, maybe not from a financial standpoint, that Cody's doing six-pack Saftic is showing up. With, I don't know, whatever drink, whether it's a seltzer or a beer or whatever your heart desires, Cody. I won't discriminate. I won't poke fun at it. As long as there's booze in it, I'll be happy with it. And by like fight 5 or 6 into it, you're gonna be a wild card. I'll tell you that much. All right, we got.
I might have to actually edit next week's episode depending on what stupid crap comes out of my mouth. But it's the 6 beers is not the problem. 6 beers over the 45-minute period. That's the problem. And I say 45 minutes because, yeah, whatever. I can stretch it out to an hour and 20 minutes. Best case scenario. It'll be a shit show.
It will be. Pray for Vicky Leon's. Finally, we got Takashi Sato taking on Themba Gorimbo. It's another straight pick'em. It's the second straight pick'em on this card where I feel like the books are kind of just being like, and I feel pretty similarly, like looking at these lines, just like, got no idea. I can make arguments for both sides. I think there's going to be lots of violence and potential for finish in this. But yeah, really don't quite. I'm not very, very sold. Maybe you can sell me on a side in this fight between Themba Gorimbo and Takashi Sato Code.
This is actually the same greasy spot that I'm in with Chase Hooper. Sorry, who was it? About Chase Hooper, Nick Fiore. It's like
Cosce
there's no real
versus Urbina. We're kind of torn on similarly.
Yeah, but in Fiore and Chase Hooper's case, like my final assessment of it was like I was just gonna take the underdog because I needed an underdog. Chase Hooper's plus 100, not actually an underdog. This is the exact same thing in Gorimbo versus Takashi Sato. It's just like, I'll just take the underdog. It's a 50-50 fight. It's greasy. I can see either guy winning. I can see other guy losing. Give me the dog. There just is no underdog. So got to put it in your analysis hat and actually take who you think is going to win. I'm going to take Takashi Sato. A couple of reasons, I guess. First and foremost, he has the UFC experience. He's fought in here before. He's fought against some decent guys. His wins, for the record, Ben Saunders, Jason Witt. If you were to put me on the spot and say which guy's more durable, I couldn't tell you. He's capable of smashing that low-level guy. When he was in Japan, same thing. He's not a traditional Japanese fighter, that's going to take you into deeper waters, 15 minutes, mostly a grappler. Like, he's a banger. He's got some legitimate power. He's capable of knocking guys out. Problem is that, like, at what level? And he just hasn't really been able to get over the hump. Clayco Fracca, he's a tough winner. Bilal Muhammad, I think everybody's pretty sold on him at this point, but, he's going to be a title challenger. Miguel Beza, Gunnar Nelson, pretty world-class. Brian Battle, not terrible, right? It's not as if they've given him any, like, really soft matchups. The one that he has had, he's won fairly convincingly. The guys that are step up in competition, not quite as much. But 32 years old, not over the hill, coming off about nearly a year-long layoff after the Battle loss. So that's problematic. But he's in South Florida. He's with the Black Zillions, Sanford MMA, Killcliff FC, Hard Knock 365, whatever they call themselves. He's getting some pretty quality rounds in with Henry Hoof and the company. I think this is probably going to be a striker versus striker. And my only thing is that I'm definitely going to give Takashi Sato the power advantage, but the volume's not quite there. Like, all these fights is super low level. I'll give you a pass against Gunnar. You knew you're going to get taken down. You couldn't get your hands going. That's fair. But against Miguel Beza, against Brian Battle, he got knocked out right away. But mostly against Miguel Beza, I guess, you got to let your hands go, man. You got to create these opportunities, and the volume just isn't quite there for him. So with Themba Gorimbo, probably might have a little more volume. He might outwork him ever so slightly, but he doesn't throw in combinations. Like everything's 1-2, 1-2, maybe just a 1, maybe a 2, maybe a 1-2, but nothing beyond that. So if you want to play 1-for-1 with Sato, I think he's got the bigger power. And again, he's got the experience. Then Magurimbo, his losses, Leon Myhart on the EFC stage, bad loss. Dave Mazzani, Gina Mazzani's brother, Dirty Dave. They call him the Pain Train now. I don't even want to know why, but he used to be Dirty Dave Mazzani. Is now as Dirty Gina Mazzani. No jokes. Let's just move on. Okay.
You made it.
I can't. Yeah, he lost. He lost to him. He lost to Dave Mazzani. Right, bad look. Again, knocked out 39 seconds into the second round, I believe. Lost to Henderson Ferreira and UAE Warriors. He's not getting over the jump here, right? His wins, fairly low-level guys. That 1-2s are going to work on. The losses, generally, if you can get him out of the first round, his submission defense isn't very good. His durability is not all that good. Against Takashi Sato, I don't expect Sato to take him down, try to submit him. But if Magurimbo stays in range, throws out something lazy, and Sato can, counter him over the top, I would suggest that Sato's sparring on the routine with just a higher level of guy. I think he's got more power. I think he's a better kickboxer. And his job's on the line. He's going to get cut. So he has nothing to lose in this spot. Let your hands go. Sure to God, his coach has got to be telling him that. And if he does, I think I would give him the slight edge. But yeah, again, do you want to put your hard-earned money on this? Probably not.
If you have a Kevin Kroom in your life, get him out of there. That's all we can really say about that, eh?
I will say one
Kevin
thing.
Kroom, in fairness, I'm looking at pictures of him right now. He kind of just looks like tall. He's just tall Tim Elliott.
Well, he's not even tall. He's 5'10" would be considered tall for them, wouldn't they?
I mean, Tim Elliott's a
5'11",
5'6", 5'7". So it's he's tall Tim Elliott. What MMA just is constantly it's not shocking. It's kind of a dirty sport. But what a bombshell that was on Twitter. Anybody in the know would know. But not exactly surprising. Not surprising. Tim Elliott, poor guy, is just trouble's just kind of found him. And it's not even anything, not even his fault by any stretch of the imagination in this one. But trouble's just found him all along the way his entire career.
Trouble has typically found him, no doubt about it. But yeah, I think in that particular case, maybe he put himself in that position because, with Gina Mazzani, let me tell you from personal experience, she's from Alaska. She's from Anchorage, Alaska. Her and her brother Dave, Anchorage, Alaska. So when you take that small town girl, you put her in the Las Vegas Strip. Not good. So she's a bartender on the Las Vegas Strip, where she meets Tim Elliott. Tim Elliott moved to Las Vegas, and you'll remember this because you're an OG MMA historian. Tim Elliott's career was going to shit in Las Vegas. Yep. He was not the same guy. He was gassed out, dirty mullet, partying the whole time, meets Gina Mazzani, presumably in a stupor. And next thing you know, it's boom, we're together. She's got a kid from a previous relationship. He's got a kid from a previous relationship. They leave Las Vegas. They move to Kansas together. Did I mention she's got a brother named Dirty Dave Mazzani? The whole thing had problematic written all over it. But I will give you this one thing. You mentioned earlier with Natalia Silva, 10-1, but we're betting on human beings. And that's the bottom line here. You don't know what someone's going through in their personal life. So Tim Elliott's got a big showcase fight coming up against Victor Altamirano. It's a very winnable fight for Tim Elliott to beat Victor Altamirano. He just beat Tagir Ulanbekov. He should beat Victor Altamirano. Could get paid. Could be a good spot for him. 2-fight winning streak. Make him relevant again. And had he not made that tweet, then you'd never know what he's going through. But the bottom line is he's going through that his wife has been cheating on him with his former training partner and a good friend of his. His former coach, James Krause, who's his head coach, is now suspended from the game, can't coach him. He's not getting rounds in with the same way. His relationship's falling apart. He's getting older. Financially, there could be some issues. He's got this kid from a previous relationship. Now, he's going through a second divorce. He's got to chase around this kid. He's created a relationship with Gina and her family and her, you lose all of that. You're not just losing this person, you're losing all of that is spiraling in this guy's life. And we're going to break down the fight and we're going to be like, he's a better wrestler than Victor Altamirano. He's got sick pace and good cardio. But does he? What's this guy dealing with in his day-to-day life? But we're expecting them to be at 100% when they get in there, but they never are. And so my guy gets knocked out or my guy gets subbed or my guy gasses out and like I'm the idiot for picking him. Sure, but like you don't know what's going on in this guy's life, man. And even if you did know what was going on in this guy's life, it doesn't mean they can't win a fight, right? Because he could be using it as motivation or he could be using it as a crutch. You just don't know. But that's why when you're betting at anybody at a large price tag, it's like there's always some inadvertent risk that they're dealing with something. Their dog died, family member's sick, they've dealt with some diagnosis that they don't want to tell anybody about, financially in a state of ruin, delivering Domino's pizzas, even though you've banged out with some of the best heavyweights on the planet. Poor Tai Tuivasa. My boy. It's tough to you're not betting on a robot, you're betting on a human being. So my heart goes out to Tim Elliott because it would be a tough spot, but I would also suggest that he somewhat knew what he was getting himself into before he started this chapter of his life.
Fair point. And at the end of the day, it's none of our damn business.
No, yeah, I'm not looking to kick a man when he's down. It could be any one of us. It could be your friend, your neighbor, your brother. But it's like same thing. I've met some cool guys in my life, man. These were good guys, and they ended up in jail for like murder or Todd Stout with the rape charge, or I don't even really want to get into it, but like, the one I most definitely will not. I'm not going to mention either of them. I know two people that have done some pretty crazy things. Okay, the one I will tell you. The other one is pedophile stuff, so we'll just throw that one out. But I went to elementary school with this girl for 10, 15 years. My dad works with her dad, right? Even still, I still see this guy all the time, okay? I knew her for 15 years. We rode the bus together after school for like 8 of those years, okay? I consider this person a friend of mine. She ended up giving birth to a kid despite never getting pregnant. Well, she obviously got pregnant. She never showed. She was like 5'6", maybe 110 pounds, never got a belly bump, never showed a bump, never showed carrying a baby, never showed nothing, right? Went to the hospital with like irritable bowel syndrome, and they were like, you're about to give birth to a child, and pulled the child out of her. It was crazy. It was in the Quebec newspaper. I was like, miracle baby, born from a mother that didn't even know. And you hear about it in the States, particularly some of those greasy states, where like a 300-pound girl gave birth to a kid and didn't know about it. You hear about that. You never hear about no 100-pound girl give birth to a healthy baby without ever showing it, no period, no swelling, no nothing, okay? Crazy. That's not where the story ends. She ends up going to the doctors like 3 years later, irritable bowel syndrome. They look her over. The nurse comes in. The nurse is like, where's your baby? She's like, oh, at home with the kid. She's like, no. You just had a baby sometime within the last week. And this girl's like, no, I never had a baby within the last week. The nurse is like, yeah, 100% you did. Because we're running these tests on you and we can see that you had a baby. So they send like home, I don't know, basically like someone to the home for a wellness check. And they check out the house. And she's got 3 dead babies in her basement stored away. This girl was able to have kids without showing. And Lord knows why, she's in jail now. But she would just kill the babies and throw them in the freezer. Husband didn't know. The first kid that she had never did anything to it. It's still surviving. There's a publication ban, but you can find it. Girl in Quebec. True story. And I was friends with this girl. I knew her for 15 years. And that was what was going on in her life. Husband didn't know anything. Nobody knew anything. Dad disowned her. He don't want to talk about it. Why would you? Why would you ever blame him? But like probably the craziest thing that's ever happened to me. Didn't happen to me. Probably the craziest thing, like you actually know this person. Like you knew Jeffrey Dahmer, you knew some sociopath, you knew some crazy person. And just like a totally normal person the entire time that I knew them. So how does this relate to fighting? It doesn't. And when I send the Fight Network version in, I'll cut this crap out. From a hardcores that hang out right to the end of the show, you guys are with it. You guys know what's up. The only way this relates to MMA fighting is like, you do not know what's going on in someone's personal life. So the premise of betting is for entertainment. You're betting to get a little more action, little extra thrill, but to ever believe like you got someone, oh, I know this person, like unless it's your wife and you're with them every single day, like you just don't know people, man. So how could you trust putting large sums of money? Last week's card, DK alert, someone put $30,000 bet. Well, why? And they all lost, by the way. Those big bet alerts almost never hit. Yeah, so buyer beware, unless you just love the spot. You love the spot, you take your shot. Some of these cards, which spot, we're about to rip through the PRP here. Which spot do you generally like on this card, Paul? Because so far I like Hernandez, and you can see him blowing it against Shahbazyan, who may show up and has better striking. Who else do you like? I like Buckley,
I
but they're
mean,
going to just bang it out in the pocket forever long it lasts. Carlos Diego Ferreira off for a year and a half. Borschev, you don't like Borschev. You're taking Maheshate. I can't fault you there. Some tight fights pretty much everywhere else. This is a greasy card, man. So, keep that in mind.
there's a lot of fighters that could have dead babies in their basement here, Cody. I'm not going to lie. Promo code DOP. What I've got on Prize Picks this week, we got Joaquin Buckley, less than 41.5 significant strikes. Chase Hooper, less than 1.5 takedowns. Rebecca got to 3, but it's like Chase Hooper wasn't able to get a takedown against Alex Caceres, so it's like I think that number's a little bit high. Lupito Godinez under 2.0 takedowns because this is actually a wrestler. Maybe she comes out and actually just like sticks to that game plan and gets her done. But I mean, she's had multiple matchups where it's like she just doesn't. Sometimes she just comes into a fight and is like, I'm not wrestling here. So 2 takedowns, I could see that one pushing for sure. But 3 takedowns is a big ask, I think, over the course of 15 minutes. And Mackenzie Dern, 71.5 significant strikes. I know it's a 5-round fight. Angela Hill does tend to get hit a bunch, but it's like go through the stats on Mackenzie Dern, who's probably going to be hanging out trying to get this fight to the mat by whether it's pulling guard or holding up against the cage, looking for trips. I don't really foresee too many significant strikes for her. Maybe she gets up to 50. Maybe she gets up to 60. The one time that she did get there, I believe it was against Verna. And it was in a 3-round fight. She got over 80. But, yeah, I think that's a tall it's a big ask for somebody who's been in a bunch of 5-round fights and usually gets to like 30 or 40. 71.5 significant strikes to the under. So, yeah, I like all the unders there. The only bet I've actually made is Maheshate so far. I'm going to wait for weigh-ins, and I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be firing too much on this one. We've got a week off next week, and then we're back in action. But without further ado, Cody, hit him with the PRP.
We're going to go with Angela Hill at the top, dog number 1. We're going to go with Anthony Hernandez, Emily Ducote, dog number 2, Joaquin Buckley, Carlos Diego Ferreira, Viacheslav Borschev, Karolina Kowalkiewicz, Orion Cosce, Rodrigo Nascimento, Chase Hooper, I guess that's dog number 3, Natalia Silva, and Takashi Sato. So Sato's even money. Fiore, Chase Hooper. Honestly, you could take either one. I could see them both winning, but that's even money. Orion Cosce versus Urbina is even money. Vanessa Demopoulos, Karolina Kowalkiewicz, basically even money. It's like, yeah, I don't know where the trust factor is. We'll need the bounces. Of course, we'll need the bounces. But yeah, getting off that top ticket, Anthony Hernandez and Buckley, on that second line, I'd like to put Borschev. Paul's making me at least go back and relook at it. But yeah, I mean, Maheshate's definitely got a shot. He's more durable than him. I'll give him that. Carlos Diego Ferreira, I'd like to bet him. 1.5 layoff, 38 years old. Can't get behind him on the second line. And then quite literally nobody else. Oh, I guess Natalia Silva. It'll be one of those 2-ticket cards that doesn't pay much. Is what it is. We'll figure it out. Again, we need the bounces. If you do get the bounces, it'll be a juicy ticket because there's a lot of value here. It's just like, who's the value on, right? There are a lot of middling 50-50 fights. So anyways, all I can leave with you is good luck this weekend. And it's not irritable bowel syndrome. Go see a nurse. If there's serious medical issue going on, do something about it. But other than that urging, that's all I can leave you with.
That may be the most messed up story anybody's ever told me in my life. And I went tree planting in like the greasy woods of northern Canada. It's the craziest story that I've been sober enough to remember. Maybe somebody's told me something crazier, but that is wild. That is wild. That is like straight out of a movie. Yikes.
Yeah. We went to French school together, and then she moved to Quebec. But if I would rather tell the story sober, because if you told somebody that and you'd be drinking, almost certainly they'd be like, it's a lie. And then if it was a lie, how messed up of a person would it take? No, how messed up would it be for me to tell that kind of lie? Like that's messed up, bro. That's even more messed up than what she did. Nothing is more messed up than what she did, for the record. That was just a shitty joke. But yeah, like I don't even know why I bothered saying it. It was like a get it off your chest kind of thing, because it's not like I go around telling everybody that stuff. But yeah, man, you don't know what these people are going through. You think Chase Hooper's sitting around eating ice cream, playing video games, and he's probably sitting around doing steroids, and he's probably going to come out here and look awesome. And if that's the case, what? But then he's probably sitting around eating ice cream and playing video games. So just getting the read's been tough. So yeah, anyways, last week we hit the top 2 tickets. I would be happy if we could do that this week.
All right. If you thought that story was wild, let's all pray for Victoria Leonardo to get the job done, because six-pack Saftic's probably got some other stories in the chamber to tell you in 2 weeks' time. But that is it for us this week. Hope you enjoyed the show. For producer Megan and Cody Saftic, I'm Paul Shaughnessy saying goodbye and good luck. My God, man. Dead babies in the basement? 3 of them?
Three of them.
Like, were they like
3 of them.
Were they like decomposed?
It's
Like,
I
was
think
this like
that
a
they were,
3-year
in the freezer.
process? They're in the
Would
freezer.
have had to have been. It would have to
I'll
be,
tell you
but the
why
timeline
that woman
was like
did that.
9 months.
Postpartum?
No, well, not why she did that, but I can tell you how she did not know she was pregnant, because I didn't know I was pregnant until after I was 6 months pregnant. I have a backwards tilted uterus, so she probably had a backwards tilted uterus where the babies grew up into her rib cage, which is what happened to me. And I didn't look like I was pregnant. Even the doctors were like, what the fuck? And I was like, what the fuck indeed? And then 3 months later,
That's
I had a baby.
crazy. That's
I shared
crazy.
this story on the radio recently. Actually.
Yeah, but you didn't put the babies in the.
No, wouldn't do that.
Yeah. Well,
So
my
she
God.
gave
I think
birth to them herself and then like kept them. In
she
the
she
freezer?
birthed them herself at home in the bathtub or in the basement, and then would just immediately get rid of them before the husband got back from his like work shift. And then it was just like, oh yeah. And she went to the doctor complaining of like irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, and then they were like, you just had a kid. She's like, no, I didn't. That's how she got caught. Sent it over to her house, raided the house, found them, and she pleaded insanity.
Which
her
I
lawyer
think
got her to
is
plead
pretty
insanity.
valid.